Hello, welcome to another Becoming a Modern Man. We are playing Mardu, Death's Shadow, and we are running up against Hardened Scales Affinity. This is our opening hand. Seems pretty decent. We've got a nice little curve going on of, Bauble, Inquisition into Scholar, Ranger. And then we've got this team of Battle Rage, which could potentially finish our opponent off. So we've got like a nice little run of cards here. So I quite like this. Lead with Bauble into Bloodstained Mire. I'm going to check our own top of our deck, see if it's something that we want, and then we can fetch away if we don't particularly want the card that's on top. So that's just an interaction with Bauble that you can look at. Usually I'm looking at my own the top of my own deck with Bauble. I think that's generally more useful than looking at your opponent's, because it's very rare that we can interact with that in any meaningful way. I mean, I suppose we do have discard spells, so seeing the top of their deck is not completely irrelevant, but often you do want to be looking at the top of your own deck. So our opponent appears to be Ravager Affinity, not Ravager Affinity, rather Hardened Scales Affinity. So I'm not entirely sure what the most important card here is. I don't like seeing Ravager. Hangerback Walker could be a real pain as well. Animation modules presumably going to be their turn 1 play, unless they just play Lanoir Reborn, which ends the battlefield tapped. That's frustrating, but I don't think it's the end of the world, so I think we're just going to take Ravager here. Not sure whether that's necessarily the right play, but it seems like the most dangerous card from them. So they run out an animation module, draw into another Inquisition. We'll play out the Scholar here so we get some presence on the board. Can draw into a Walking Ballista, which I think is the card we want to take most. Don't really want them to have a Walking Ballista stacked up. And also, given that our deck is kind of suicidal, we don't really want them to be able to just ping us dead. So yeah, that's kind of a risky card for us. Plays Lanoir Reborn and makes a token with the animation module, which is fine. We draw Gurmag Angler, which isn't particularly useful here. Inquisition takes another Arcbound Ravager out of our opponent's hand, and they have some more action on the go, but nothing particularly new. Dismiss this. So swing in here. Yeah, unfortunately we're missing a land drop, so we couldn't play the Ranger here as a follow-up. And we don't have enough cards in the graveyard to play Angler, so we kind of stalled a little bit here. Opponent's going to get to play Hangerback Walker and stick an extra counter on it, and also make another servo token, so they're climbing up the board nicely. I'm going to play Ranger. I'm going to get Hex Parasite here. I don't know how good it is, but it seemed kind of like it could potentially be pretty nice in this matchup. So I ended up getting that instead of the Death's Shadow. We've got this Unearth, so we can actually get back a Ranger after sacking it, if we so wish. So I thought this might be a line that could potentially be good, in that we can just remove counters from certain creatures. But I think it ends up not going as well as I intended. So I played the Hex Parasite. I look to get rid of the counters on the Hangerback Walker, but thanks to playing Throne of Geth, our opponent's able to put an extra counter on the Hangerback Walker and then sack it, so they get the flying Thopter tokens immediately, and that doesn't really work out particularly well for us. We attack with Ranger, opponent blocks with everything. Actually, that helps us out a bit because we want to unearth the Ranger and get back a Death's Shadow, but don't tell them that. Our opponent plays a Hardened Scales. Follows up with an Arcbound Worker. And makes a servo. And they get to fly in for 2. So yeah, these flying tokens might potentially be a problem for us. So we unearth, get our Ranger Captain back, get our Death's Shadow. Maybe we should just got the Death's Shadow to begin with. I think Hex Parasite seemed like a cool idea, but Probably doesn't work quite as well as we'd like. It's not too bad though. I mean, we can still potentially kill this Arcbound worker. I think things are going to start to get problematic. So yeah, here comes a Walking Ballista, which ends after 2 copies of Hardened Scales, comes in with quite a lot of counters on it. Our opponent can hit us for 2 down to 5, then proliferate and modular the Arcbound worker. So yeah, there's no real good way of surviving that. We could have used the Hex Parasite to remove some counters from the Walking Ballista, but our opponent could then just respond after we lost the 2 life to kill us off. So yeah, as I kind of predicted earlier, Walking Ballista became a big problem and ended up finishing us off. And maybe Hex Parasite's not quite as good as we'd hoped. So yeah, we ended up taking a fairly bad beating, and maybe we should just be more aggressive, taking a Death Shadow and gone to town a little bit quicker. Certainly with this Battle Rage, I think we might have been able to steal a win. But yeah, if we'd lived a little bit longer, maybe we would have managed it, but it didn't work quite as well. I think that's really from my own misplay, really, of overvaluing Hex Parasite as a potential trump card. So here we are with sideboarding. So in terms of sideboard cards, Wear and Tear obviously is an artifact destruction spell. We might consider bringing in some Fulminator Mages. They can destroy Inkmoth and Blinkmoth Nexus, which are potentially problematic cards for us. We've also got Plague Engineer. There's not, I mean, quite a good number of their creatures are constructs. Not all of them, but a decent number, decent enough that we can probably bring in Plague Engineer for this matchup. And we've also got Liliana of Last Hope, which can probably pick off a good number of their little guys, while also getting us potential value with some recursion from the graveyard. So yeah, I think we've got quite a lot of cards we can potentially bring in. In terms of cards to take out, what don't we want? I mean, Hex Parasite hasn't done terribly good. I think certainly the Spell Bombs need to come out. There's nothing really exciting going on with the graveyard from our opponent's deck, so we can take out the Spell Bombs, maybe consider taking out some of the Street Race, maybe. Team of Battle Rage seems really good as a way of getting through their board, because they can definitely clog up the board fairly easily. The Hand Disruption still seems fairly good. Stealing out important cards seems decent. So yeah, kind of a difficult choice. Fatal Push is probably better than Path to Exile in this matchup, I imagine. But they still have cards that we kind of need to deal with, particularly Walking Ballista. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe we could cut down on some of the sort of single action removal. Particularly as we bring in Wear Tear as well, which can destroy the creatures, as well as their Hardened Scales as well. So yeah, some combination of those cards I suppose want to come out, maybe some of the removal, certainly the Spell Bombs. I guess we keep Hex Parasite around, it might be more useful than it showed itself to be in that last match. Okay, so this opening hand, it's not terribly good. I think this is probably a mulligan. Doesn't really do a whole lot. I guess this is slightly better. We've got Death Shadow and Hex Parasite. So Hex Parasite allows you to just reduce your life total to, well, basically 1, or as close to 1 as possible. So you can make a huge Death Shadow, which might be a play here. We've also got Plague Engineer, which could be good. I mean, I don't think it's insane against them, but certainly naming Construct has its advantages. If we can get our Engineer on early, it can also name Blinkmoth, amongst other things, which potentially kills off their attacking strategies. So, just going to lead off with a Hex Parasite here. Gonna have to dismember, unfortunately, for that after playing an Inkmoth Nexus. Got nothing to do on the next turn. I'm gonna play the animation module. Let's fetch up Sacred Foundry. Play Tide Hollow Sculler here. Okay. So we take the Ballista. Our opponent has an Evolutionary Leap, a Ravager, a Torpor Orb, and an Ancient Stirrings, which is an interesting combination of cards. Certainly we want to get down our Tide Hollow Sculler and play Engineer before this Torpor Orb, but I think our opponent's probably going to have other priorities. But certainly being aware of that is helpful. And we can play a 1-power Death Shadow. I don't think there's anything too wrong with that, given that we've now taken care of the Walking Ballista. So opponent casts Ancient Stirrings, unfortunately find another Walking Ballista. And they're going to cast that to kill off our Death Shadow, so I guess there was a reason to not cast the Death Shadow for one there, but I think that would have been conservative play given that we've seen their hand. So draw Thoughtseize, which isn't the best in this situation, but this Plague Engineer is going to be able to take out the Walking Ballista naming construct. We can attack for 2, and then we're going to take their Ravager from their hand. So they're left with Evolutionary Leap and Torpor Orb, which obviously isn't terribly exciting without any creatures in play. One plays Torpor Orb, which is all a little bit late. One plays out the Evolutionary Leap. So we're feeling pretty good about our position here. I mean, we're not exactly bowling our opponent over, but we've not got any creatures currently, and we are still attacking them. We got a Team of Battle Rage, which isn't terribly exciting. Opponent Evolutionary Leaps their Blinkmoth Nexus into a Metallic Mimic, which isn't a construct. It often names construct, but it isn't a construct in itself. So opponent names Thopter with the Mimic. So Bauble, draw as an extra card. Just going to attack here. If necessary, we'll use the Battle Rage to save our creature. So opponent tries to block the Tide Hollow Sculler to get Walking Ballista back. I decide to team a Battle Rage. Our opponent's going to Evolutionary Leap in response, finding Arcbound Ravager. And yeah, now our opponent has Arcbound Ravager and Inkmoth Nexus in play. I didn't realise that Arcbound Ravager isn't a construct, it's a beast. So we're in a fairly difficult position. So we're going to attack. Blocks. Increases the size of the Arcbound Ravager, gets back up at Ballista. Second Tide Hollow Sculler isn't going to be able to take anything from their opponent's hand, and being empty-handed, our opponent knows the coast is clear to use Arcbound Ravager to kill me with Inkmoth Nexus. I suppose alternatively they had the possibility of Walking Ballista killing us as well. So yeah, they're in a really good position, and yeah, they're just going to sack enough creatures and artifacts to put all the counters onto Inkmoth Nexus and infect killers. So yeah, it went pretty badly. I don't think the matchup is probably that bad, but it doesn't seem overly favourable. There's a lot of ways in which they can kill us from decent position. Walking Ballista is a big problem because they can just shoot us dead out of nowhere. Death Shadow obviously struggles with things like these servo tokens, so we kind of have to hope that we get a Team of Battle Rage or just a very quick Death Shadow kill. So yeah, this matchup doesn't seem to line up particularly nicely for us. It might have gone better than if we'd... I mean, I don't think we played overly well, so I don't say that this match is awful just because we lost, but yeah, there seems to be a lot of cards that are problematic for us, and a lot of lines that they can play to get around us that will yield them good results. So yeah, even from a fairly good position, or what seemed to be a good position, it turned out that Evolutionary Leap managed to sort of plough them onwards, and they found the cards they needed to pick up the win.